welcome all my business leaders. My name's Terrell Curry, founder and managing partner at Infinite Business Strategies, and I'd like to thank you for joining our Business Turbo Boost Tip of the Week. And this week, we'll be discussing value add. So every action that we perform in life has to be considered value add or non-value add. The difference sometimes depends on whose perspective you're making that determination from. In a business, you must evaluate value add from a customer's perspective. After all, if the customer doesn't see the value in what you're charging them for, would they be willing to pay for it? As we discussed in previous weeks, everything you do in your business, in life, is part of a process. If there's a step-by-step methodology for you completing something, it's part of a process. If you want to streamline your process to be competitive or to reduce waste or to reduce hidden costs or just to make improvements, you must understand the difference between value add and non-value add. So there are three main components that determine if an action has value or not. The first component is the customer must be willing to pay for it. This is the driving force behind value add. If you were buying a new car and the salesman told you that it comes with a retractable umbrella that projects from the roof to keep the bird poop off the car while you're parked. Now, if you're me, I kind of look at him and say, okay, that's nice. But then he says, it's only an additional $800 that we added into the price already. Well, now you've got my alarm. I'm not sure what you would say, but I know what I would say. Hey, you can keep that umbrella. I don't need that. Knock the $800 off. And they said, no, it's just part of it. We think it's value add. I don't care what you think. Me as a customer don't see the value. Well, guess what? That's why that's the first component of value add. The customer must be willing to pay for it or they're going to take their business elsewhere. The second component that makes an action value add or not is the action must be done correctly the first time. How can you expect your customers to pay for things you throw away or things that you don't do right or things that have flaws in your process? For instance, extra inspection looking for defects or rework because of mistakes made in the process. If you were buying an ice cream cone and they dropped the first scoop on the floor but charged you for it, would you expect to pay for that scoop that was sitting on the floor? It was part of their process. It happened while they were making it for you. You should pay for it, right? No, absolutely. Well, your customers think the same thing. They don't want to pay for mistakes that are happening in your process. That mistake cost you though, didn't it? That ice cream scoop that came on the floor, it wasn't a free ice cream scoop. They had to put that in the scrap, and at the end of the day, what if that happened every time they made ice cream, they dropped one scoop on the floor? Next thing you know, you're throwing away ice cream. That's a waste of money. The customer's not willing to pay for that. The third and their final component of something to be value add is that the product or the service you're providing must change state. And what I mean by that is you don't want to make something and the customer is going to pay for it just because you decide to move it to a shelf and then move it to the warehouse and then move it back to the shelf and move it back to another corner of the warehouse before you send it to the dock to ship it to them. Now, you needed a person that made all those moves, and that person cost you money. It took time to make those moves, but do you expect for the customer to pay for that inefficiency? Absolutely not. The customer only cares that if you added value, you added something to the component that I'm getting, I'm willing to pay for that. I want it to be done the first time, and you made a change that I see value in. That's what makes up the definition of a value add. So is it of value to move that same material in a warehouse to every corner of the warehouse before you ship it? Is it of value for you to charge by the hour for a service, but you take 3-minute breaks every 5 minutes? I know that sounds ridiculous, but this is what some customers see in our processes. They see that waste and they don't want you to charge them for that. I've dealt with customers that come to a facility, let's say it's a manufacturing facility on a tour, and they see waste all over the place. When they leave, their mindset is, there's opportunity there. They're probably charging me for that somehow. I'm going to tell them that I'm going to pay a lower price until they streamline some of their processes. Believe it or not, that's what a lot of companies do. I've done that on behalf of companies before with their suppliers. I was working with a client in Chicago, and we were doing a workshop trying to streamline a process, and it was a on-time delivery process we were trying to streamline, and we were trying to make sure that in our future state of that process didn't have any of the waste or any of the non-value added activities, and we wanted to make sure that we were able to get the product out the door in a timely fashion to meet customer needs. Well, the CEO of the company actually had invited the customer to be a part of this workshop because it was one of their number one complaints, on-time delivery. And we didn't get them things in the right amount of time. So they were participating in the workshop. So we mapped out every step of the process. Every step of the process. They wanted to be totally transparent, and they were, right? So the first thing we did after we mapped out what we did today, the current state, we went through it and eliminated some of those 8 wastes that I talked about last week. If you didn't catch it, you can go back and watch the video. And then we get to the non-value add and value added piece. And I gave them these little green dots. And I said, listen, I want you to go over and put a green dot on everything you see as value added. So people were kind of excited. They got up, they started putting dots on just about everything, right? So then I had them take the dots off. And I gave them the definition of value add, those 3 components of value add. And when I mentioned that the customer is willing to pay for it, the customer actually got up. It was a VP of operations that was there with us. Got up and said, hey, give me those green dots. I'll tell you what I'm willing to pay for. And they went through putting green dots on the things that they saw value in. Now, do you think that was every step of the process? Absolutely not. And it was kind of an awe moment for the rest of the group, because they saw from the customer's perspective what they saw as value, and everything else was opportunity. This self-awareness is what separates the best-in-class companies from everyone else. They remove non-value added activities in their processes, but they also know how to measure it. How do you know you're doing well if you haven't decided what well looks like? How do you know if you're progressing towards that next level if you haven't defined that next level? Believe it or not, there are industry standards for best in class where they measure the percentages of value-added activities in their processes. And that is for every type of industry, whether it's a transactional process, whether it's a manufacturing process, whether it's a service-related process. There's a way to measure that. Well, you know what? As I always say, you don't have to be the expert. You just have to know the expert. You may not know how to evaluate your process. You may not know how to have a systematic approach, a step-by-step approach to identify the waste and non-value added activities into those processes that determine the success of your business. We can help here at Infinite Business Strategies. So I encourage you, go to our website, at the bottom of any page. You can schedule a free one-on-one consultation, or you can join one of our strategy workshops where we actually deep dive into some of your processes and we talk about value add, non-value add. We have a virtual workshop coming up, and we also have several workshops in 7 different cities that we're hosting. And if you think that, hey, listen, I'm beyond that, but I need your help immediately, schedule us to come out and do a maturity assessment on your site, on your premises, where we can help you identify where their opportunity is and help you come up with an improvement strategy. I'd like to thank you once again for your time. This has been another Infinite Business Strategies Business Turbo Boost Tip of the Week. Thank you.